get a little extra hop in your step still playing these guys?
Yeah, it's always, I think for a variety of reasons. It's home for me, and a lot of family and friends, and obviously some real special memories in that stadium and some great wins. And so it's always exciting to go down and play in the Coliseum.
It sounds like you and Lane still have kind of that good, friendly, joking relationship,
Sure.
But during the game, do you shelve all that? I mean,
Yeah.
Any of that going on during the game?
Not at all. Not at all. That really ends probably in about pregame warm-ups, quite honestly. I don't even think we talked to each other last year in pregame warm-ups. And I'd really make it a point to talk to everybody, and it wasn't on purpose. We just didn't talk last year in pregame, and then we talked at halftime walking up the tunnel after doing our interview. So we were good friends, but at the end of the day, we're both really competitive guys, and we want to win.
It's a pretty high praise, obviously, for Matt Barkley. How is he a different player than maybe the guy you saw a year ago?
Well, he's just continued to mature. I mean, all 3 years now. I think he's minimizing the mistakes. Obviously, his red zone efficiency is getting better, and how he's playing in the fourth quarter has really improved. And I think that's why they're winning, these close ball games at the end that they hadn't been winning the last couple of years.
Because you didn't see a lot of passing in the Stanford game and maybe more running in the Nebraska game, could this be maybe the best passing team you've seen all year long as far as the challenge for your defense?
Well, it's a great challenge. We've seen some pretty good ones, especially early on, obviously with what Hawaii does, and they're still doing to everybody, what Arizona's been doing and Nick Foles. But I think the efficiency of what Matt does with Robert Woods and Marquise Lee is what makes the challenge. There's no secret where the ball's going. Combined, I think they have 135 catches, so it's not a real secret that 2 and 9 are going to catch the ball. So you need to understand where they're at every snap. Lane does a good job of moving them around. They line them up in the backfield. They line them up on opposite sides. They line them up together. So you better identify where those two kids are.
They're calling for fairly heavy rain down there Friday and Saturday. I'm sure you know that. And
right.
How does that change anything, or what does factor into that?
Well, I like to think that we know how to play in the weather. That I think one of the keys is, especially early in the game and in pregame warmups, is understanding the footing for our guys. It's a natural grass field and something that we don't get exposed to as much as probably would like to. So the footing in pregame, to understand that, making full speed cuts. But then ultimately, going to be a lot of pressure on our ball boys to keep the balls dry.
You said the other day that, Kaysen, you think maybe if he hadn't had the injury against Utah, maybe the kind of game he had the other day could have come earlier. But how has his progression been, kind of from the minute he got here to now?
I think he's just playing faster now. There's so much less hesitation in his game. His ability to line up, know the call, and play fast and play physical. Obviously, it was evident the other night. We know the natural ability that he has. He's one of the better catchers I've been around. Just sure-handed, strong catching guys. And then his stature, obviously, weighing 215 pounds, his ability to use his body to separate from defenders. And he's highly competitive. And so it's just taking time, like it does for some freshmen. It takes longer to get comfortable. One, in the game setting, and then two, with the calls that come in and go out and execute them really fast and physical and furious.
Have you kind of minimized maybe it's the wrong word, but I mean kind of put him at one spot and kind of had him
Sure,
run that
yeah, that's exactly what we've done. We've tried not to move him around too much and let him get good at one position. He's got time here, and we've got time in this system, and we can get him the ball at that position many different ways. But I think in time, as his career moves on, we'll see him move around much more. But for now, I think it's the right thing to do with him.
Does the increased playing time at wide receiver affect at all what you do with him on punt returns?
No, I don't think so. The returns he gets, and so much now with what guys are doing, especially we're going to get it again this weekend with the shield punt. They get so many guys down covering, and not deep long punts that you're just not. The opportunities for returns aren't there right now, and it's not just us. It's universal. You look at the Pac-12 stats. There's just not a lot of punt returns going on, and so one of the trends in football, I guess.
When he has so much hype coming in. Is it as a coach, does that influence in any way at all what you do or how you handle him?
No, and I don't think it's influenced Kaysen at all either. He's a very humble young man, extremely hardworking. He came from an excellent program at Skyline, where he was well coached. He was raised by two good parents. So he understands what it takes to work and the work ethic needed to get better at this thing. And not for a second have I felt him complain about it. I think there's been frustration. There's been days of frustration where I think he wishes he could be doing more and be doing better. But now he's gotten to the point where he's earned it, and he's earned his playing time, and he's playing well.
And on the other side of the freshman linear, I guess, path, with Austin, is there anything happening with him that he hasn't caught balls, or is it just because?
Well, I think there's games where we try to get him the ball more than others, and sometimes it doesn't appear like we're trying to get him the ball when really we are, where he is a primary and the ball's just not going his way for a variety of reasons. It could be coverage, it could be pressure on the quarterback, it could be he didn't run a great route. And so I think a lot of things can add up to where the ball goes. And obviously Austin's a very talented kid, and he's still working and finding the consistency at playing at a high level, down after down after down. But without a doubt, we're trying to get him the ball, and he just had a game last week where he only caught one ball, and it was obviously very early in the game as well.
How's the O-line kind of bounce back from Saturday?
Well, there's a lot of competition going on there right now, and that's a good thing. Guys are wanting the opportunity to step in and play and show that they're worthy of playing. Guys that haven't been playing, and I think that some guys that have been in there now have to prove that they're worthy of staying on the field.
What are the odds that we could see some changes there for Saturday?
I'll know more after I take a look at the film tonight. I think that's why you saw such a physical practice tonight. Guys are fighting for spots.
Does Alameda have a new hand?
He had a little thumb sprain, but he's working through it.
Steve, with the defense, USC's defense, they've been in a number of shootouts this year. Is there something different about their defense this year, or does that tell you more about the offenses in the Pac-12?
Well, I really think they've improved from last year to this year. Quite honestly, I think that they're playing better, and as the year's gone on, they've gotten better and better defensively. I know that the Stanford score is a bit skewed because of the overtime. You go to 3 overtimes, it's a little bit of a skewed number. But also, I think it's the offenses in this conference and the way the game's being played right now, and we're seeing a lot of high-scoring games. It's just the nature of the game right now.
Steve, I know you talked about this Monday, but Nick's quote about USC and Oregon, all that stuff, apparently has been put on some posters down at Heritage Hall. Have you got any sense from anybody down there that it's a big deal to them and it's a motivational tool? Have you felt that at all? Or?
I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody down there, but again, I think it was one taken out of context. That wasn't the form of the question, and two, I don't care. You ask Monty Kiffin; he'll give you the same answer. Oregon's tough to prepare for. It's not so much of the scheme; it's how they play and the speed at which they play the game, and that is what is so unique. And it's not that your own team can't play that way. It's when you're trying to service the defense and you have cards and you're trying to show their plays to simulate that speed is what's challenging. And give Oregon credit, that they've figured that aspect of the game out and make it difficult. That's no disrespect to USC. They're a tremendous offensive football team, but they're much more conventional that way in a preparation standpoint.
How confident, Steve, is Eric Folk? You've had 2 games where he's won last minute. Just maybe to talk about his mindset.
Oh, I think Eric is an extremely clutch kicker. I don't think the moment gets too big for him. Obviously, the 2 kicks at USC against USC, the kick at Notre Dame to send the game into overtime, a couple of big kicks to end the halves for us. So he's had to make big kicks for us before, and I don't think that they're big kicks in his mind. I think it's just another kick.
As far as the offensive line, we all noticed them last game maybe because they were struggling. But were there some things unnoticed that they were doing well in the first, 6 to 7 weeks of the season before that game?
Well, I thought we were playing together really well. I thought we were on the same page. Even if we were wrong, we were all doing it together. And I think that was where some of the disappointment for me came last week. I didn't think we were together. I felt like there was either a lack of communication or communication that was wrong, and some guys didn't want to hear that communication, and we got separated, and that's where we were getting beat at times. And so I'd like for us to come back and play together and doing things together, and then when we're doing that, then we can come off and play fast physical football. I think as the lack of communication occurred early in the game last week, that created some hesitation for our guys up front, and then ultimately we got beaten one-on-one matchups because we weren't being physical enough.
Is that on audibles, or is that they're not hearing the play in the huddle?
No, there's constant communication up front, and it starts. Every snap, there's constant communication. It starts with the center the quarterback identifying the mic, the center making his calls, and it works its way out to the tackles, to the tight ends, and sometimes those tackles and tight ends have to make calls that have to be echoed all the way back down across the line to the opposite side, and that's no different than any other game. And so we just have to be more consistent in that category.
Steve, you mentioned the competition on the OL. Any particular positions that are highlighted this week?
No, there's just all these guys need to play better, and they know it. Senio on down, they all need to play better.
Is obviously it's tough with Chris in the mix, but is Bishop kind of a guy that you'd like to get
Yeah,
involved more?
yeah,
Is he kind of forcing her hand?
Joel and I were talking about that today. That you know, we love Chris to death. Obviously, he's done so much for us, and he's a fantastic player. But I think it'll actually be better served for Chris if we can mix Jesse and Bishop in there a bit more, so that Chris is fresh when we're going in the second half, when we're in the fourth quarter of these games that are tight ball games. And so, not that I want to take carries away from Chris Polk, but I do think it would serve us well to get those other guys some carries, and it would serve those other kids well. They've earned it. They work hard.
Can you tell yet if James has a chance to get back Saturday? Or?
We rested him more today. He looked decent yesterday. We tried to rest him today, and then we'll see how he looks tomorrow, and then be able to give him Friday off and have a better feeling.
For all three of those freshmen, Bishop and Austin and Kaysen, how is it going to benefit them to have played this year?
It's huge. It's huge for them. Just even spring football practice. When you've been in the real live game setting atmosphere, your ability to settle down, I guess. That the anxieties are much less, and you can focus on the things that you need to focus on, and not so much the peripheral stuff. And so those things are going to help him. They'll help Danny Shelton. I think Danny, his role is starting to improve and be more involved. I thought he did some nice things last week. And so of our young guys that are playing, I think they're really benefiting from that fact, and they will down the road.
Does James Sample, does he get a chance to get back at some point?
This has been painful and frustrating for everybody. His shoulder's just not getting right. And so, we'd love to get him back in the field. If we can't, then we'll have to investigate some things if he can possibly earn a medical redshirt because of that. So, but that's down the road here. He's still working to get back. He's doing everything in his power to get back out there, and I think it's been frustrating for everybody involved, because he's a real talented kid.
So your plan is to get him back ideally?
And we'd love to, because he's a big physical kid. We're doing a lot more of him at corner. We're working him at corner because of the physical nature of the receivers that we're seeing, and I think he's got a real chance to be pretty special out there.
Does the small experience that Keith had down there last year, does that help him at all, or is it just?
Sure, no, I think it helps. Yeah, remember he's an LA kid, and I'm sure he's going to have a bunch of family and friends there, and the fact that it won't be the first time he stepped on that field, and he played 2 plays and threw 2 passes, and threw both of them pretty well. The other one I think should have been caught too on the 2-point play. So I think that it does ease some things. He's been down that tunnel before and whatnot.
As far as medical red shirts go, Jory wasn't part of the senior thing. Do you know anything about him next year?
I think he'll earn that year back. I really do. So we'll see.
When do you find out?
You got to really call the NCAA. they know more than I know.
Thanks, Mark.
Cool. You got it.